don't necessarily take their practice. Well, there's actually a lot of people that don't practice between trialing, that's naughty. But there's a lot of people that don't necessarily know how to practice efficiently between their trialing to either, brush up, skills that the dog might be struggling with during a trial or enhance skills. My goal today for this training session is to work on continuing to develop skills on my young dog Beeline. So I have a young Border Collie B, which we've probably referenced quite a bit on our social media accounts. And she has only been in two agility competitions before, and they were very, very, very basic. So just, she's doing her crazy smile right now. They're just starters classes just to get her a little bit of experience. And, she is fairly well trained already, but, there's lots of things she doesn't know yet. For sure. So, my goal when I train her is to, from my experience with dogs over the last, I don't know how long I've been doing agility, since I was 6 years old, so 30, long time. Almost 30 years. You can do the math. There's a lot of dogs that will have injuries, and there's a lot of repetitions and that type of thing. And if those of you who are watching are involved in agility, you know how much our sport has changed, and we have to be so careful with the amount of reps and stuff that we do with our dogs. So my goal when I'm doing my training sessions is to try and be as efficient as possible, so I don't have to have her do things incorrectly, increasing the amount of reps. And also too, I don't want to be telling her no or hey or wrong or any of those things. I've already done all my basic training with her. My goal for agility is just to keep things light and fun. You might not notice because I think her head's been to you the whole time because she's been struggling with us, but she's been running around warming up, and we're talking a little longer because I'm afraid she's actually a little bit tired from her running around. So
something that I wanted to mention, if you clicked on a link on Facebook or clicked on a thumbnail on Facebook, then you're probably still within Facebook, and if you want to jump in the chat, if you have questions or comments or you need things answered, then make sure you come all the way out to YouTube. You can even search us McCann Dog Training on YouTube, and that might help you get there. But I don't know that you have access to the live chat if you're still inside of Facebook. But with no further ado, I think Kayl and I are going to get right into this topic. I'm excited to take the train station on the road. I didn't bring the train whistle quite intentionally. I feel like the train whistle is a sacred thing, meant only for the train station. But on that note, today we're going to be talking about problem solving between trials. I'm Ken Steepe.
I'm Kayl McCann.
Welcome back to McCann Dogs. So we have a pretty interesting live for you guys tonight. Now, I'd love to know if you're currently competing in agility, or maybe you want to compete in agility. Let us know in the chat, because I can see the chat here, and I know our amazing moderator is overseeing everything that's going on there, and he'll let us know if we need to talk about something. But what do you want to talk about today? Like, where does your head go when you first think about being efficient when you're preparing for a trial, maybe?
Yeah, well, my head right now, for me personally, my head is not so much about trialing, but I recognize probably most of the people watching that's sort of what your goals are. My goal right now for my dog is simply just to continue building her skills so that by the time I do trial, I have a dog that's really, really prepared to be there, and, we'll end up, having success, of course, which would be a nice added bonus, but mostly that she's going to go and she's going to, run well, and we're going to enjoy our time together. So that's sort of my goal. I'm really aware of what her current strengths and weaknesses are. So when I set out to do a sequence, I try to be as to what problems may happen, and then I'm going to decide whether I'm going to let them happen and then take the opportunity to work through them specifically, or whether I'm going to try to beat her to the punch and set her up for success. The sequence behind me is set up from my international handling class that I run each week, a couple times a week, and one of many levels. I actually have class on Thursday with her. We're only in level 3. which is just like our starters advanced level, is where I'm sort of working her right now. But I thought it would be fun to try some of the level 5 international stuff. She is capable of doing many of the things, but I'm assuming I'm going to have to break some things down, which I'm kind of excited about because I can sort of work through stuff. So the goal is to try and see what she can do and see what she can't do. And then I'm hoping she can't do a lot of stuff so that I can show you, what I would do to train through it, hopefully quickly and efficiently.
I know you always talk about training smarter.
Yeah.
You always want to be more efficient, train smarter, less reps, better attitude, more speed. That's something you really focus on. And that's something
super important to me.
Yeah, and that's sort of the reason that we wanted to invite you into the arena today and talk some of the things that we wanted to talk about. Now, some of the people that I see have jumped over here on YouTube. SD Cruiser, our moderator, Dan, Daryl is in the chat, Shandy Blake, Crafty Dogs, Madison Winters, Jane Newman Ralph.
I was just at a seminar with Shandy on the weekend.
Kayl spoke very highly of you, Shandy. Persuasive Dog Training, Sharon G, and lots more people I see that are watching right now. We want to welcome you guys to the train station. I'm Ken Steepe, a professional dog trainer. This is Kayl McCann.
Also a professional
dog trainer. Family, the McCann family. This is her family's arena. We do obedience training next door in the obedience training buildings. We're lucky enough to get to help more than 500 dogs every week. So this is it's pretty exciting, and I love this opportunity where we get to hang out with you and share some knowledge. And certainly, there's lots of people in the live stream today that are huge agility fans. I saw a few people mentioning that they wanted to get their dogs into agility, but I know there's lots of people in here that are currently doing agility, and I think that this is maybe a little geared towards them.
Yeah, I think it's nice, especially we have a lot of people that come and visit us and hang out with us on Thursday nights normally, and we talk a lot about like dog behavior and basic training and things like that. So it's really nice to sort of show you kind of the other world that we have in our dog training. So once we have dogs that have gone through basic training, we have 5 levels of agility classes here. I think we're up to 90 agility students a week. I have several amazing agility coaches that help teach me. They help teach me. Yeah. They help teach my classes alongside me every week. And we are spoiled rotten with this beautiful facility because it's really cold outside. It's cold here in Canada, so it's heated in here.
And it's going to get worse tomorrow, I heard. I didn't know that. I'm not that excited about it. But with that said, do you think we're ready to get into some agility?
I think we could try some stuff.
Okay, let's maybe just set up what we're about to do, and then I'm going to become the cameraman. I'll be your eyes, and I'll try to guide the camera around.
Yeah, so as I've said before, the drill behind me is, there's several drills set up in the arena, but the one that I thought I would like to focus on first is the one includes the weave poles. She knows how to weave. She can surprise me sometimes with great weave skills, and then other times things can be challenging for her, so we'll just sort of see what she does. There's a lot of other challenges in this sequence, though, that I think that she may struggle with.
Perfect.
So I don't anticipate I'm going to get through the entire thing. It's a pretty hard sequence. I don't think I'll get through the entire thing on the first try, but I'm just going to kind of give it a go, and wherever we have trouble, I'm going to stop and kind of train through it.
Awesome. If you have any questions along the way, make sure you drop it in the chat. If this is your first time on the train station, normally what we do is we talk to you guys, answer some questions. We do some sort of presentation or training, and then we get right back into the chat. So as questions come to mind, just drop them in the chat, and we'll be back to check them out. But let's get this thing. I'll try to set you up with the best angle possible so that we can see what Kayl is doing.
Will you be able to hear me?
Yeah, I think so. Certainly if you're nice and loud.
Wait. So, stop for a second. The first challenge that I'm going to work through is a weave and tunnel discrimination. So there's a tunnel and a weave pole side by side here. It is something that she's seen before, and the last time she saw it, it didn't really go very well. So rather than putting it into the sequence, I'm actually just going to warm her up on it just to help her be successful, and then I'm going to work it back into the sequence. And again, the idea behind this is setting her up for success, having a pretty good understanding of what she can and cannot do, and then building my training session around that rather than just crossing my fingers and seeing what happens. I'm coming into my training session with a clear plan as to what I'm going to do when things go right and what I'm going to do when things go wrong, so that I can be efficient about how I deliver my information to her. Okay, ready? Yes! Good. Good girl. Wee, yes, good. Good girl. Wee. Good girl, Lee. Okay, so I think she can do that. She just did it well twice, so now I'm going to put it in the sequence and see how she does. And then I think I'm just going to go on and see what happens. Sit. Sit. Wait. Wait. Sit up. Sit up. No, sit up. 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 Okay. Down. Yes. Wee. Yes! Good girl! Feet. Teeter. Go. That's okay! Good girl! So the reason why I decided to reward her is I have a very specific criteria about the teeter-totter. Actually, we did a live stream on the teeter-totter a few months ago, didn't we? So she needs to drive right to the end of the board before it starts to tip. And if her feet can get to the ground, okay, hold on. I can't talk while you're jostling me around. Sit. Somebody's a little excited. Good girl. Her front paws are supposed to touch the floor before the teeter-totter touches the ground. And if she does that, I try to really make a big deal out of it rather than going on so that she kind of knows exactly what I want. Now I'm going to try the teeter-totter again. And I know that she's much more likely to do it if she has speed. So I'm not just going to put her in front of the teeter-totter. I'm going to start with this jump so I have a bit of momentum and I'm going to rev her up. Not that she needs to be more excited. She's pretty excited already, but I want her to really drive into position. Okay, ready? Ready, wait. I have to remember where I'm going though. Here, there. Okay. Here, switch. Wait. Ready. Set. Okay. Ready, go. Teeter. Go. Yes, good girl. So that was okay. That was an okay teeter-totter, but not her best. So I'm not really going to reward her. I praised her, but I'm not going to make a big deal of it. She also knocked the bar here. For my dogs, I don't allow them to knock the bar, so if she knocked it, I wouldn't go on. Not going to make a big deal of it, but I am just going to come back and try it again. We're going to give her a bit more of a run at it. Here. Wait. It sometimes can be really difficult if you start mid-sequence, so you kind of have to be strategic as to where you go back from. Good girl. Okay. Yes! Go. Yay! That was perfect, Abby. Go on. Okay. Beep. Woo! Okay. We need a collection cue. Holy schmoly. Good girl. Have it up. Target. Hop. No. Yes! Good girl. So I've been doing a lot of weed pull training. Part of the issue here is that she knows the weed pulls are over there, especially because she's already done them in a bit of a sequence. So I just need to practice this jump a little bit. My command to collect is dig, and she's not responding because she's a little excited. Okay, come here, switch, sit, wait. Okay, dig. Yes, that's right. Good girl, Freckles. She's so naughty, this dog. She wants to go for a little weave. You're not going there yet, bitch. Out. Sit. Sitting. Okay. Yeah. Beep. Get back. Beep. Yeah. Good girl. That was nice, miss. Good girl.
Okay, you want to take a break and break that down?
Yeah. Whew, that was a running one.
Mm-hmm.
That actually wasn't the end of the sequence, but there was a tunnel right beyond that red jump, and I asked her to collect. I actually think she could have turned tighter than she did, but she didn't even look at the tunnel when I asked her not to, so I wanted to take an opportunity just to stop her and reward her. That was good. Okay.
So
take a little break for a sec.
I think that's an important thing to talk about a little bit.
She is buzzed right now. Okay, just chill. Get a drink, you nerd.
So now I know.
You're so crazy.
Sometimes a couple things. I don't know if anyone noticed those weave guides on the jump. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
Weave guides on the jump. Oh yeah.
Can you guys see that? My massive head is in the way. Can you guys see that right there? Right there on the
We're
jump?
terrible at this. It's very opposite. Yeah, those are an aid to help the dogs. Why don't you get a drink? You're huffing and puffing, bitch. It's an aid to help the dogs square up on their turn. So on that particular jump, I don't want her to slice across the bar. I want her to go deeper and then square up. My command for that is really ridiculous. It's moo, 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 moo. It's a long story. We don't even need to go over it, but that's what it is. And she's doing pretty good on it, but because it was a very independent send, I couldn't really go up and like help her with it, so I just decided to put that in just to make sure she didn't do it incorrectly. So if I do it a couple more times, I'll probably try it without it in, and see if she can do it on her own.
So because the topic is problem solving between trials.
Yeah.
So let's say you went into a trial and encountered some of those things. Talk about how you would troubleshoot so that you're ready for the next time that you go in. So for example, you broke down the course.
Yes.
You rewarded, talk a little bit about like your reward placement choices for rewarding. If you're struggling with something like collection, why you chose to completely eliminate the rest of the course, do a couple of repetitions, rather than focusing on going from obstacle 1 to 9 or 10 or whatever. Because
to be good at competing, to be good at getting cues and getting clear rounds, you have to have the skills in order to do that. And running sequences just to get through them isn't really going to help you much with that until you're at the point where you're preparing for something and you're testing your skills, and that's a whole separate exercise. It is something that we do sometimes when we're preparing for really big events. We just sort of muscle through and practice getting it done. But in this case, and what we're sort of trying to help you to understand right now is that you want to sort of look at what the strengths and weaknesses are within your dog's performance, whether it be at a trial or whatever it might be, and then take an opportunity to praise and reward or reinforce those particular things while you're training them. I was doing certain things like rewarding her for coming back to me. So sometimes I will throw the reward for her on the ground if I'm trying to get her focus to be a little bit more on the path that I want her to go on, or if she's struggling with commitment. I've trained a lot of commitment work on this dog, so it's not a problem for us at all. In fact, it's almost on the other side. It's something that we have to be careful about because she'll go to obstacles super easy. Without me there, I can leave really early and she'll stay committed, which is wonderful. But it's like the weave poles, for example, she will get very distracted by those. Or if there's, I need her to collect and she's coming in really quickly, and it's difficult for her because she's high-minded and she's excited, then I will choose not to reward her on the ground for those particular ones, but actually have her come back and reward from my hand. So it really depends on where is the dog more prone to look and go. So if a dog really needs work on, focusing on their job and on their task and towards the obstacles, then that dog would be much better off rewarded away from you or with a toy on the ground to keep their head lower. If you have a dog that tends to grab obstacles and isn't as handler focused as maybe you would like them to be, then rewarding them for coming right back to you can be a really great way to balance that out. And what you also need to remember about dogs is that they flip back and forth between those two things all of the time. So when she was a baby and she was learning, I did a lot of throw the toy, get the toy on the line, get the reward away from me, get her really focusing on doing things all independent from me. And then she started to really catch on to the game and get a little bit more higher minded, really wants to go to the obstacles, which is a fabulous thing, of course. But so I've just in the last 2 months, I would say, I've changed my reward placement a little bit with her just to kind of balance her out. And it could be that in 2 more months, I might have to go back to pre-placing the toy in different places sometime, but that's what you need to remember as an agility handler and trainer, is that you don't just do one thing all of the time. You need to train the dog that you have in the moment and react to what they need currently.
For sure. I see there's a few questions in the chat about dog agility teeter training, and I think I can get you guys that link, and I'm just about to do that. Talk about someone's mindset when they're coming out of the ring. They maybe really struggle with a run. Maybe there's a persistent problem, and they know in 2 weeks they've got another trial, but they continue to struggle with this thing. Talk about some of the choice making for them. What's the best approach for them?
Well, unfortunately, you're asking a person that's like really anal about those types of things, and I have really high expectations. So I typically don't put my dogs in trials and compete with them if I'm not 100% sure what's going to happen.
Okay.
If I don't know, then, like, for example, Bee's first trial, she kind of knew how to weave, and she knew how to go over a teeter-totter, but her performance wasn't at the understanding that I would have liked, and she was nowhere near done her dog walk training. So I entered her in competitions, but I avoided anything that had contacts and weaves in it, to begin with. And then the last time that I went in, the second trial that I went into, she was, pretty sure about all of her obstacles, the weave poles probably being the most unsure, and so I went in and basically said, I'm going to give her this many chances to do the weaves. If she's too high-minded and she can't settle in, then I'm going to sacrifice my runs for the rest of the day, not go home,
sure,
but just skip the weave pulls, because I'm not prepared to allow her to repeat something in the ring incorrectly, because in the ring I can't stop and work through it or train her. It's a test. Sure. So if she's not ready to pass that test, I'm not going to put her in that scenario. So that's sort of my take on it. I know a lot of people don't really like stopping the trialing.
Yep.
But I really believe that that's one of the best things to do. And that you don't need to be in a rush to trial your dog. Make sure you feel really good about your teamwork with your dog. I've done all kinds of fun matches with her. So I put her in scenarios that are a little bit more challenging than her weekly classes, just to kind of see where I'm at, and then I can regroup with my training plan.
I'm just thinking about Funky Monkey, and somebody at home might think, geez, I'm working so hard and it's just not coming together, and they've spent 6 to 8 months, 10 months, and they think it's, their dog should be ring ready.
Yeah.
Talk about that, the Funky Monkey, just for a moment, about how much effort you had to put in.
Yeah. So she's my oldest dog now, and she just retired from agility this year, but she's probably one of my best agility dogs I've ever had. But her initial start out was not very good, because she hated to be wrong, and she had skills like you wouldn't believe. She could do all of the obstacles, she could do all the crazy handling very, very well, but she hated to be wrong, and she really hated to be wrong if the situation there was any pressure at all.
Yeah.
So I did try to put her in a competition when she was trained enough, but the mental pressure was a little bit too much for her. So I made the decision, instead of starting to compete her at 2 years old, which was sort of the norm for my dogs. I waited an additional year, and I think she was 3.5 before I ever put her in a competition again, because I decided to evaluate my entire training process with her. And once I did that, I got a completely different dog. I got a much more confident dog. I got a much crazier dog. If any of you have seen Funky run, she's barking like a mad woman. But I worked basically for a year on that, and that year did not include any competing at all.
Right. Yeah. So don't feel discouraged. Mm-hmm. It's so easy to feel discouraged if you made great strides, let's say, on the weave poles, and then all of a sudden your weave poles fall apart.
Yeah.
It takes time, and you really want to be ready when you go in the ring. Not only is it expensive, but it's not fun if you're like, this could be a complete train wreck. You want to go in there with some sense of confidence.
And it's not even about ready to go in and win competitions.
No.
I do all kinds of levels of competing. I go to local trials where I really don't care whether I come first or 9th or 10th or 12th or 20th. I don't really care. I care more that my dog's, doing a good job, and that we're running well together. For those of you who have run in agility, there's this moment where you get out of a ring and you just have this crazy high, and it doesn't happen nearly as often as we would want it to.
Sure.
But it's a great enough feeling that all of the other crappy runs where you just want to go in a corner and cry, that moment of amazingness, it makes up and makes you crazy enough that you just want to go for it again. But you can achieve that moment just by working your butt off and, you know, getting a cue in your starter snooker that you've been wanting to get for such a long time. The measurement of the goal can be very big or very small. And the reason why I'm saying this is a lot of people will say, oh, well, Kayl, you know, you're a world team member and, you know, you're focused, you know, on, you know, winning world championships and blah, 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 blah. And yeah, I am, I suppose. But I am also just into dog training. I just like training. If somebody said to me, Kayl, you'll never be able to compete again, you're only allowed to train your dog, I'd be totally cool with that. I love training my dog. I find it very rewarding. Competing is fabulous and, you know, fabulous and it's fun too, but I don't know. I think that that's, for me, everybody's different, of course. I really like that part of it.
Yeah, I know.
My dog's not panting anymore.
Jamie mentions, I need help getting my dog driving up to the end of the teeter. She isn't the most drivey dog and her teeter is super sloppy. Any tips? Do you have any just sort of, I did post a link to the in the chat to our teeter live stream where we did some of these drills, but just, is there anything that you can, a quick overview?
Yeah, I would go back to working some of the foundation training in your teeter-totter. One of my favorite things to do is do the table method where you have tables under each end of the teeter-totter so that you're minimizing the tip. The teeter-totter is at full height and there's tables at either end and you're minimizing the tip and just teaching the dog to run across the board very confidently. But if you watch that video, there's 2 or 3 games that we do that specifically train the dog to run to a specific point on the teeter-totter, and that sort of changes the dog's criteria a little bit. If it's a matter of the dog lacking motivation versus a dog that literally just lacks confidence and they're scared of the motion and they're scared of the sound, you would address those 2 dogs very differently. So you really need to figure out what the root of the problem is. And sometimes it's obvious, guys, and sometimes it's not. Like sometimes when people say, oh, my dog's super unmotivated, they don't really want to do it. And then, you know, so I understand dog behavior and then I'll watch it and I'll say, actually, this dog, you know, is not confident. She's, you know, they're worried about this portion of the exercise.
Sure.
So then you can kind of reroute and train that way. So that's sort of what I would say. That was a longer answer than maybe.
That's okay. Yeah. And, so who asked that question? Jamie Alexis. So I also dropped a link in the chat on YouTube, Jamie, if you want to check that out. Dan asks, how old is Beeline?
Beeline is 2 years old. She turned 2 in, October of last year. So. Okay. She's a little over 2.
Yeah, so she's almost ready to go. Melinda Miller has a question, and you know, Melinda, we're going to answer that or talk about it in just a minute. I know these 2 are ready to go, and I know for the agility fans, they probably want to see some high-flying agility training. So let's. Do you want
We're going to go to a hard part of. Oh, sorry, I hugged you.
So maybe you could talk about what the courses that you're about to run as well, just so people have some idea of what you're trying to.
Yeah, so I know there's probably people that weren't here at the beginning. So the sequence that I'm running is a international level jumpers with weave sequence that we were doing this week in class. It features some obstacle discrimination, such as weaves and tunnels side by side. It features very independent backside send, so you have to send your dog to go and commit to an obstacle so that you can get to the next section in a timely manner. So it requires the dogs to have some independent obstacle understanding. And then there's also a lot of stretches where the dogs are going to open up really wide and then they have to condense and collect. And then the last thing, which I'm actually going to do right now, is throttle work. So a throttle in agility, for those of you who don't know, is when your dog is aiming towards an obstacle and they sort of believe that it's the direction that they see, and a throttle is when you tell your dog to move to the opposite side of the obstacle, and it's generally the side of the obstacle that the dog can't see. So it's a very challenging behavior to train a dog to do, and it is growing in popularity in our sport right now. So it's something that I've been working on with her a lot, and she's doing fairly well, but I'm going to test her and see what she does, because I don't know. It's a pretty hard one, and I have to bypass the weaves to get there. So she might be a sneaky sneakerton and go for a little weave pull when she's not supposed to. Hey, babe? Okay.
Okay. I see some questions rolling in the chat, and we will jump back in the chat right after this exercise. I'll turn into the cameraman.
Okay.
Normally this is the point where I'd blow the whistle, the train station whistle.
Okay, so in this next section, she's got to go to this jump a little bit independent, and then I have to try to get her to the back of this yellow jump here, which I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but it's like, what would you say, hun, like 30 feet?
A little bit less.
And then I have to bypass 2 tunnels to get to a jump. And then I'm going to come back up to this end. And there's a little bit more independent sending as well. So we'll see how she does. Okay, switch. 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 B. Switch. Wait. One of the things that I'm working a lot on is her patience before we begin. She really likes to push me because she's so excited. She's not bad. She's just as sweet as pie, but she's really very excited about playing. So see how far ahead she is. I really want her to be a bit more patient. Come here, please. Sit. Good. I'm also very strict about how she sits when I sit. Good girl. Yes. Wait. Ready? Set. Move, 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 move. Yes! Good girl. Get back, get back, get back, get back. Yes! Tick, 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 tick. Yay! That was your best one! So again, I said I was going to do the sequence and I was going to come through and come back up to the top, but she just did a perfect response to my cue. I also gave it to her in a much more timely manner that time than I did the time before. So I wanted to stop and reward her because that's how I'm going to get her to do it again and again and again, as I need her to know that when I ask her to do that and that's the behavior she gets me, that really great things are going to happen. That was so good, little bee. Okay, sit. The other thing that I really cheered her on is this yellow jump. I told her to go to the backside and then I just sort of took off on her and she made the decision to still complete her job even though I was running the complete opposite direction. Again, love that. She's a fast little dog. She needs to be able to do things by herself and I need to be able to get to the next section on time so I can give her good information. Are you ready? Set. Move, move, move. Yes! Good girl. Get back, get back, get back. Oh! Oh my. Is that fun? So, no way, Jose. I don't know if you could see really closely, but it'd be interesting to know whether people thought that was my fault or my dog's fault. What do you think, honey?
I was trying to frame the shot. I don't know.
He didn't see. It was my fault because after I did my blind cross, I had no idea where she was. I completely disconnected. And because there's a lot of equipment there that she could potentially go off course on, I must reconnect much more obviously. So I'm going to just try it again. Here, sit. That was the mama's fault. Sit. Beeline, sit. Good girl. Move, 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 move. Whoopsie. Here, sit. 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 Good girl. Ready. Move, 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 move. Good girl. Yes. Get back, get back, get back, get back. Hey, hey, hey. I saw you that time, you little monkey. Come here. Come here. Okay. Yeah! Good girl. He's a little cheater.
So it's nice to see her making mistakes because you can talk about troubleshooting through it.
And again, I'm not going to get mad at her. I'm just going to try it again. And what I don't want to do is put her back to the beginning of the sequence and try the whole sequence over and over and over again. Because A, I'm practicing way more than I need to. She's not having problems with this part of it. Stop for a second. If this is the problem area, I need to go through and I need to work this for a moment. Then I can trickle back and put it back into the sequence once she understands what I want. So I'm just going to do this one jump again and reward her. Wait. Get back, get back, get back, get back. Oops. Uh-oh. All right. Try again. Try again. Wait. Get back, get back, get back, get back. Yes! Good girl! That's better. All right. So, hopefully, we know what we're doing now. This is a hard part, little bee. This is a hard part. Okay, out. Are you ready? Sit. Sitting, sitting, sitting all the way. That's my girl. Now I forget where I'm going. Okay, so okay. Move, 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 move. Yes, feet. Oh, that was a nice teeter. Okay. Come here, monkey moo. Come here, please. Be. Sit. So the other thing that I know about this dog is now we're sort of a little bit off rhythm. And so she's guessing now because she's like, oh my God, we're starting and stopping you know, I must need to be thinking. So I really need to do my job right here so that I can let her sort of settle in and just put her trust back in me a little bit here so she's not trying to guess so much. I will show you. Sit. B, sit. Good girl. Okay, move, 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 move. B, B, B. Get back, get back, get back, get back. B, B. Yes. Yes. B, come. Get back, get back, get back. In. Here, B, weave. Yes, good girl. No. Use a little bit of a cheater. Missy, here, switch. Switch, weave. Yes, weave, yes, good girl. So that's really challenging. She's weaving right into the side of the tunnel, so it's putting a lot of pressure on her. And I have actually trained that before, but the last time I did it, I had guide wires on, so that's the first time she's done it without any pressure there.
Okay, do you want to take a break and talk about that?
I just want to do that last sequence one more time.
Yep.
Good. Okay, one more time. Out. Ready. Sit. Okay, get back. B. Yes! Yes! B, come on. Get back. Here. Easy. Weave. Yes! Oh. Weave. You're getting tired. Come here. One more go. You got this. Wait. I'll help you. In. No. Here. Wait. In. Weave. Go. Weave. Yeah. There we go. Good girl. Yes. Okay, you need to get a drink now. Good girl, sweetie. Good.
Bring our chairs back.
That was a runner. Who made this up?
So a couple things that I noticed.
I can only make fun of it because I made it up.
Sort of withholding the reward, even though she'd run a great course, screwed up her weaves. I know a lot of people would be like, that was probably my fault, and then reward their dog.
I'm glad you said that.
Reward their dog for it. So talk about that for a second. Then we're going to jump into your comments and questions in the chat. There's tons of good stuff here.
Yeah. I don't like to give my dog a toy reward if they've made a mistake, regardless of whether it was my fault or whether the dog's fault, because I truly believe that there's a way that you can respond to a dog that they still feel is positive, even though it doesn't involve a toy or a piece of food. You know, sometimes she's very happy when I genuinely praise her or interact with her, or kind of joke. You probably heard me joking around with her a little bit. Oh, you little turkey. You know, those types of things. She's not upset by any stretch of the imagination. I keep it very light. But if she's making mistakes, she's knocking bars, she's popping her poles, and I'm giving her reward anyways, there can be a little bit of mixed messages there. The only time I will reward my dog, if it was my error, is if I'm just so deliberately off with my handling and I my handling's wrong and I totally sent her to that obstacle and it's just super blatant, then I might be like, oh, you're right, I totally sent you there, and I can reward the dog at that point. But if it's like a mistake, like knocking a bar or refusing a jump or missing a contact or popping weep holes, those I do not give the dog a reward after. However, I don't say like no, or like anything like that. I just I'm just kind of neutral, and then I go double back, and then I try it again. Now, if she had made more mistakes on the weaves than that, I would have put a guide wire on the end, because she was starting to get tired. And when a dog starts to get tired, and you make the decision to rerun that particular thing again, you're really running the risk of that dog making more mistakes. A, because of confusion, and B, fatigue.
Right.
So when I doubled back to take the weaves again, I subconsciously said, she doesn't get it this time, I'm going to put a guide on. Because I don't want her to do it wrong, and then do it wrong, and then do it wrong, and then have to stop her and pull her back. Because two things will happen. With a high-minded dog, they'll start to get so spun and much higher that they will not do a good job because they're not thinking clearly anymore. If you have a softie, like if I was to do that with Funky and she's sensitive, as I mentioned before. She would do the weep holes again, but she would do them very slowly. And she would sort of be like, oh, I'm not too sure about this. I don't want my dog working like that or being a little bit worried. So I need to make sure that if that happens, I have a plan in place so that I can get the dog to finish on doing something successfully, but they're doing it with joy. And attitude and that type of thing.
Yeah, and it really speaks to every dog being different. So you need to be like pretty dynamic.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on your dog, have an understanding of what their limit might be. I know.
What I do with this dog is different than what I would have done with other dogs. It's just, you got to get to know them and sort of what types of things work best.
Because this is sort of in line with what you were talking about, Shandy Blake mentions, I'm really bad at stopping and rewarding when we fix a problem. When it works, I want to keep going. Any advice for remembering to reward my good dog?
That's an excellent question.
Yeah.
And there's so many people that are like that, Shandy, because people get really excited and they're like, oh my gosh, it's going well, I just want to keep going. So pre-plan your rewards before you start so that it's not like, if you're not good at like rewarding on a whim, which that's sort of what I was doing, I was rewarding on a whim. So I was going around and something great would happen and I would sort of, then I would reward because that's my mindset. That's what I'm not thinking about going through the sequence. I'm thinking about what's happening in the sequence. Is it good? Is it bad? Is she a star here? And if she is, I'm going to reward her. If you're not there in your mental place yet, don't worry about that. But you can start out by, when you step to that start line, you're going to say, okay, if number 4 goes well, I will stop and I will reward my dog. Or if my dog does good weaves this time, or if my dog does a good A-frame this time, I'm going to stop and reward my dog. And if you're so bad at it that you're still not going to stop, then you need to train with a buddy who's going to throw the toy for your dog, or maybe throw the toy at you to remind you to be better. But yeah, I would say pre-plan your rewards and be specific as to where you put them so that it is enhancing something that you want enhanced for your dog.
Crafts and Stuff asks, what's the difference between moo and get back? And then Crenton 100
that's a good
mentioned
question.
2 different backside cues, moo and get back, square up and slice.
Well, aren't you guys
I wanted to make sure that I added that in for Crenton 100.
Wow.
Because, yeah. So talk about your backside. I wondered if people were going to be like, is she yelling moo? What is she saying?
Well, even though they might have been like, she's not consistent. She's saying 2 different things. Yeah, I do have 2 different backside commands. One is to square up and one is to slice. This is the first dog that I've trained to have 2 different cues. All my other dogs, I've just said moo, 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 moo. It used to be that I said move it, move it, move it. And the reason why I was saying that, and this has been my backside command since 2004 or something, when backsides first came out. I've said it ever since then. But all of the other normal things that people say, get back, around, whatever, push, my dogs all had behaviors on those commands already, so I didn't use them. She doesn't have a get back. So anyways, I just thought it would be interesting to see if a dog could understand the difference between how to jump a jump based on the verbal command. And of course, my body language is very different when I want her to square versus when I want her to slice. So part of it is that she's responding to my verbal, but part of it is that she's responding to my body language as well. But I do a lot of independent jump training to work on her ability to slice the jump at different angles and at different speeds so that she can navigate her body through those situations very well. And I do lots and lots and lots of squaring up work because that is definitely much harder for the dog to do than it is to slice. And she started learning foundation stuff for that when she was a baby puppy, just with a little plunger on my kitchen floor and some treats. Yeah. Before she even saw any jumps in her life, I was already starting to work on her little moo-moo-moos.
So this sort of speaks to that maybe a little bit. When we talk about repetition, we always talk about trying to train less repetitions, more energy, shorter training sessions, and even things with the puppies. You don't need to be in the agility arena to do little things with the puppies. But Melinda Miller asks, my puppy's 10 months old. The vet said she was full grown and should be okay for activity. What are typical causes of injuries in the sport or obstacles that cause injuries often? And I know repetition.
That's a really good question.
Yeah, repetition can be one. If you have repetition
reps can be one. Also, too, some dogs are just more prone to injury if they're not fit. Or if they're overweight, so you have to make sure you watch your dog's weight and fitness. That's something that I spend a lot of time on with my dogs outside of agility training. But I would say that common injuries in this sport would be shoulders and back are the two most problem areas. Hips a little bit too, but it's mainly mid-back and shoulders. The obstacles that are most challenging on the dogs is actually not so much jumping, unless you're doing a lot of turning and digging, but it's the weave poles and the A-frame. The A-frame, the hardest part on the dog is the up ramp when they are running towards it. If you shouldn't ever do this because you'll be horrified, but if you watch a dog in very, very slow motion, especially a really fast dog, run up the A-frame and you can see the amount of impact that they have when they hit, it's horrifying to watch. It really scares me. So to be honest with you, once my dogs know their A-frame and they know their weaves, I am quite cautious on the reps that I do with those particular things. My border collie that had to retire early due to injury, his injury was a knee injury, but that actually stemmed from a shoulder injury that he had for a long time. His shoulder injury came from the chute. It's an obstacle that's actually no longer in agility. It's old school agility people. I guess not old school. It actually wasn't really gone that long ago, but it sort of has a plastic front and then like a cloth ending, and he went into the chute from the side and he really hurt his shoulder, and we rehabbed him from that, but it was just always a little bit weaker. And then the up ramp of the A-frame, he was a very fast dog and he would hit the up ramp very hard, and that caused his shoulders to be really sore. And when I say really sore, I'm not saying like he couldn't function and do an agility. It would just be just like, you know, a runner or an athlete that has like, you know, little aches and pains. That's sort of what he
and
what
much
he was
much
at.
like a runner or, you know, a human athlete, we do lots of warming up and cooling down with our dogs. It's a great way to avoid that.
So
Keep your
much.
repetitions short.
My dogs have way more health care than I do. They have chiropractors, they have massage therapists, they have all these things that we do to help them.
You know, anybody could warm their dogs up. You know,
Yes.
start them really slow, you know, do stretching, and there's also things, I think we have some videos on the channel, maybe we'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and I don't want to deter people from agility. Obviously, we're doing a live stream because we want everyone to like agility and like want to do it with their dog.
Yeah.
But you do have to be aware that, you know, it is pretty impactful on the dogs, and we have to just be really mindful that we're not doing too many reps and that we're, you know, helping the dogs to be as fit and as prepared to do this active sport as we can.
Now, and Mark, our friend Mark Bills, I think, is doing some research into like making a safer A-frame. So I'm excited to see where that goes.
Yeah, his A-frame's awesome.
For sure. Jordan M., and this is something actually, Jordan, that we're dealing with as well. What are some things to look out for if you've done a lot of herding training with your dog before starting agility? And this is something that is near and dear to my heart because I'm doing herding with Beeline.
Yeah.
But the reality is Beeline is Kayl's agility dog. She's our amazing, quick, little, speedy agility dog. But I love to take her to the herding fields when I go with my older dog Mac. So talk a little bit about some things that you see in herding dogs or things to watch.
Yeah. So first of all, like for our case, Beeline, she started to learn agility maybe like 10 or 11 months before she learned herding. So she's sort of done both sports side by side all the way through. So I do think that that's very helpful. I've also had dogs in the past that have done flyball and agility, and there are some dogs that if they're trained in one sport and then they move to the other, there are some issues that sort of go between the two. But if you do it together at the same time, you have a little bit less. But to speak with you, if you have a herding dog that is now moving into agility, you're going to need to really work on things like creeping and flanking are the two things that come up with herding dogs the most. Flanking, you obviously know what flanking is if you're a herding person, but for those people who don't know what that term means, it basically means that herding breeds typically on the course will like to do these sort of big outruns where they move very, very, very far off of the handlers. What are you smiling at?
And try to gather the ring stewards, to bring all the ring stewards back to the gate.
Yeah, when the handler intends for them to run sort of side by side, the dog will sort of flank out around them. So that's a pretty common thing. So to work through that, we are very strict with the handler's reward placement where they're rewarding. We would have a lot of the rewards come from their side, down on the ground beside them. We do a lot of network, that sounds funny, net.
Yes.
Work with nets.
So maybe you can show that.
Yeah, there is a net down there. I can show you in a moment. But basically, it's behind the red jump. We put it out so that the dogs can't flank because there's pressure on them, so that we can reward them. And then the creepiness or the stockiness, I will see a lot of dogs that maybe will show that. on contact training where they will not be as quick to come down. That usually can be fixed by the method that you use to train them to do the targets. And again, reward placement and sort of what you're doing to reward the dog. But lots of dogs have no trouble doing both herding and agility. They actually can do it really, really well. So hopefully that's helpful.
So this is actually something that we use in our classes, and it can be so helpful for avoiding like off course or backside jumping when you want the dog to take a front side jump at these nets. I don't know, Kayl, if you want to talk about them for troubleshooting.
I was just smiling at Shandy. She said, Heidi's going crazy listening to you, Kayl. She knows your voice equals agility. So I was teaching a seminar in Kingston this weekend, and Shandy was there with her border collie, Heidi. So her dog's been hearing me scream and yell and, be excited. So she must remember my voice, which is really cute. Okay, I wasn't really listening to you because I was looking at that.
What do you use the net for?
I will use the net for all kinds of things. I will use it for teaching my dog to collect. I will teach it for keeping the dogs, preventing them from flanking. I can actually show you on this little purple jump. This is actually one of the ways I taught my little dig, dig, dig command. So dig, dig, dig for my dog means, and you have to say it 3 times. You don't actually have to say it 3 times. I just have a terrible habit of doing that. It means that I want her to put in additional strides before she takes off, and I want her to collect and wrap very tight after the jump. So I will show you what that looks like. I'll show you actually how I start it. So I would put the net sort of in the landing zone where she's going to go. It's pretty close for her because she's very small, and she's seen the net since she was young. But if you've never done this before, I would encourage you to put it a little bit further away. And I would also urge you to jump the dog very low so that they don't jump over and go, oh my God, there's a net there, and either get hurt or get scared. We use a very specific material for our nets. So if the dogs do run into them for some reason, they can't get hurt. They just sort of flop over, and the net gets far more wrecked than the dog does. I guess I can leave your jump up. But if you're doing this, you should put your jump down. And then what I would do is leave her reward on the bend. Here, babes. Ready? Here. Wait. Yes! Good girl. So I give the command. I use the toy and the net there to help her do it successfully. And then I just repeat a bunch of times. Yes! Good girl. So she wasn't actually going to do it there because she's excited now. And because the net was there, she sort of got, self-corrected a little bit just to remind her. Okay, come here. Yes, good girl. So there's 2 ways that I could progress now. I could add more speed and distance and leave the net and the toy in as guides for her to be successful. And then I could also see if I could remove the toy from the picture and reward her after she completes her task. So rather than luring her to do the position, I test her to do the position, and then I can reward from there. But I'm going to add some speed and see what she does. Now, when I start to add speed, I just don't want to stand there and say dig, dig, dig and not help her. The cue that I give her is I'm going to lower my body, and I'm going to add a bit of a deceleration. 1 stride, at least 1 stride, before she takes off for the jump. If I do it when she takes off for the jump, she's not going to have enough time to affect change. So I need to give her information very, very early so that she can do it correctly. So I'm just going to send her over this pink jump first, just to give her a little bit of speed, and then go from there. Okay. Yes, good girl. Out. So she ticked the bar there. She didn't knock it. So I said yes. I let her have the toy for a second, but I'm not actually going to play with her much there because I actually don't even want her to do that. But again, I'm not going to get mad at her. I'm just not going to go as crazy and as loud and crazy if she doesn't do it perfectly. Tick, 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 tick. You knew, Lila. You knew. Okay. Tick, 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 tick. Yay! There we go. Woohoo! Yay! Good girl. So because I'm adding more speed, it's much harder for her to be thoughtful and think about what she's doing. That was the best dog. Out. Let's see if you can do that again. Out. Ready? Set. Move. Yes. Yay! Good girl. So I'm going to do one more, but I'm not going to put the toy down. I'm going to leave the net in though, because I don't want to change two variables at once. Just one, and see if she's able to do that. And if she does, to help her to dig and go out, I'm going to say yes, and then I'm going to take off and let her chase me and make it like really fun to open up again, so that she learns to dig and power out very, very quickly after her turns. Ready? Yeah! Good girl! Yes! Who's the best dog? Who's the best dog? Who's the best dog? Good girl. You could do the same exercise with a front cross. I'm simply just doing it with a post turn because it's a little bit harder. Front crosses will help collect the dog more. Just doing it with a post turn can be really challenging. That was a good girl. We haven't done that in a while, actually. That was actually very good little practice for us, so thank you for that.
And I think something like the net could be, really helpful for a lot of agility handlers.
Yeah, we actually, when we have dogs that are struggling with collection and turns and things like that, when we're training, we use the nets in all of our training situations. So again, it comes back to the thing that I said at the beginning of the live stream. We don't wait until there's a problem and then try to deal with it. We anticipate problems happening, and then we set the dog up so that we can train through it so that the dog's not rehearsing it, doing it wrong. So I can tell you when I do a sequence, I can tell you already right now what jump she's going to be more prone to having a hard time collecting on. I'm going to be able to tell you what jump she would have a hard time squaring up for, or whether the weave pull entry is going to be challenging, or the exit's going to be challenging. I know that about my dog, and I'm sure you know that about your dog to a certain degree as well. So when I approach a training sequence, I think about, okay, what's gonna happen out here, and what can I do to make this go well? And then I'm going to work through it that way. And then maybe the next time, so we're really lucky. So we often have the sequence set up all week long. So I'll come in on a Monday or a Tuesday and I'll go into like training mode where I sort of set her up so that she can't really make a lot of errors, and I'm building her skills and helping. And then I'll come in on Thursday, so all my Thursday classmates are going to know that I cheat. I come in on Thursday night when I actually have class, and then I don't put my nets in, or I don't put my guides in, or whatever it is, and I test her. And I remember I come home on Thursdays all the time before the live stream, and before the live stream comes on, I just cannot stop talking about how amazing my dog is.
That's true.
I always say, oh my gosh, she did so good. But it's because earlier in the week, I've done like these little tiny training sessions where I've really showed her what I want her to do. And then by the time the end of the week comes along, she's like, oh, I've seen this before. And then she does great. Hey girl. Yeah.
Hey, buddy. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add about troubleshooting in between trials, or getting ready, identifying problems.
I don't know.
Or training through it.
I don't know.
No? Okay, well, on that note...
I want to go train my dogs.
Yeah, I know, and we have lots of dogs to run here tonight, so we're so excited we're going to be able to do that. I want to thank you guys for watching. If this is your first time on the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We publish new videos every single week to help you to have a well-behaved four-legged family member. And tonight was kind of different. It was train station on the road. We were in a different station tonight. But normally every Thursday at 7:30 we have live, basically live dog training. We take your questions, we talk to you, answer anything you might be wondering about, having a well-behaved four-legged family member. And once a month we'll come out here and we'll do like an agility live stream, or we'll try to do one that's a remote, which is has always been lots of fun.
There's some more good questions.
Okay, let's jump back into it then. Yeah, go ahead.
Shandy says, how high-minded or aroused do you allow before you address it? My young dog has started high-pitched squeaking, barks during collection wraps, worried it will become a problem later on. That's a great question. I personally would address that right now, because it's much harder to fix a dog from doing that when you let them start to do it. If it's affecting their ability to make good decisions because they're just like too hyper or too high-minded, then you need to stop. You need to stop that squeaking and barking. You need to stop them right away. Don't let them continue. Let the dog sort of settle and be regrouped. Do, you know, 1 obstacle or 2 obstacles of quietness and then reward. But your rewarding probably needs to be a little calmer. I go a little crazy with my dog. You could work up to that, of course, because it's certainly a lot of fun to do it that way, but you might want to take a step back a little bit from there. And then Melinda says that she'd like to see a video on how to train the get back sometime. That would be an easy one to do. We could totally do that, Melinda.
Yeah, maybe that'll be our next agility live stream.
Yeah, the get back versus the moo moo moo. Totally.
I want to say hello to Madison, who just jumped in the stream. We're just ending the stream, Madison, but you can always watch this on the replay for 24 hours. So I want to thank you guys for watching. I want to thank Beeline for being such an amazing little demo
little
dog.
Monkey face.
Oh, she's such a good little demo dog. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and make sure that you check out our next train station. It'll be next Thursday at 7:30, where we're back in the train station. On that note, guys, I want to wish you happy training. Bye for now.
See ya.